All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. Certainly not a beautiful day in Toronto today. Actually set up for me to take a little test run on the Jeff O'Neill routine. I gave it a shot around 2 o'clock this afternoon. Kids were at school. My wife was at work. It was dark outside. Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't shut the mill down at 2 o'clock. I couldn't do a premeditated, I'm jumping in bed and I'm shutting the mill down. I can't do it.
Let me just tell you. You can only do it with an alarm because I've slept through it, and it's like you're paranoid. You're like, dude, because if you're I worked last night, and I'm different than you guys. And if I'm tired, I'm tired. Like,
right,
and if I took a nap today and I didn't have an alarm, I'm getting up at 8:30 p.m. Like,
right.
To feel good about it and comfortable, you lie on the couch 2 o'clock and set the alarm for 2:45 and have a coffee when you get up and you're golden.
Yeah.
So what happened? Let's hear it.
I tried. I gave it. There was no rhyme or reason. I was waiting for the show. Again, the weather's terrible outside. I had done a bunch of stuff in the morning, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to I'm going to commit to the Jeff O'Neill lifestyle. I'm going to give this a shot. I want to live like go. And I tried it. And I couldn't get there. By 2:15, I'm like, I'm up. What am I doing here? I can't just force a nap here. I can't do it. Couldn't force the nap.
You know what I would say? Don't quit.
I'll keep trying for you.
Give it a try. Next time you got no kids. Yeah, because I'll tell you what, it's just you wake up after a half an hour nap and you're like, I'm reborn.
You're reborn.
Reborn. And I got to tell you, it's a dangerous game.
It's
guys,
very dangerous.
Like, especially
it's Friday.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because it's dark outside, too. That's the thing. It's like a nasty kind of day, nasty weather.
But it was perfect nap day. And I will say one thing. We are getting to the point, and it's Friday, of our dear Hayesy-Bs, of getting feedback of our advice. And I will say there was a guy that had a Ryder Cup event in Winnipeg, and you specifically said, Hayesy-B, do not go. And he went.
I remember that. Didn't he have a newborn on the way, like his first child within 48 hours of...
Just got it. Dear Hayesy-B, wanted to give you an update. The groom made a bold decision to show up to our Manitoba Ryder Cup.
Wow.
And somehow is still married. The gents of the Halliburton Cup wanted to send you boys a thank you for having us on your segment. Wow. Enjoy, gentlemen. Thank you.
Good for you. Hey, listen, I never said I was qualified to give out this advice. I just handed out, right?
But I specifically remember you saying, dude,
I said don't do it. I thought it was a newborn. I guess it was the wedding. I think it was like a day or two after his wedding or something like that. Instead of a honeymoon, this guy is playing a 4-ball event in Winnipeg with his buddies, which is aggressive. But, good for him. It's all good. I'm glad it worked out. Dear Hayesy-B in about 2.5 hours, right, Noodles?
And there's some doozies. There's some doozies.
They're coming in hot today. I love it.
I read one today. I read one
Hot.
today we cannot address. I'm sorry. No? On air? I don't know. You go through them and you're like, you'd love to give that person a little bit of advice. I don't know if you guys read the one where they had to get together and somebody showed up and the couple disappeared.
No, I didn't see that one.
We're not going there.
Okay, we're not going there. We won't.
Not on air.
It'll be a proofread. Yes, it'll be a proofread. We have Doogie on the case. Doogie is combing through them right now as we speak. Doogie
and
is
Doogie,
on
you
the
know
case.
what? He's a hot shot. I even called Doogie this morning. We had a little chit-chat. And he's going to have a good show because he told me that he is ready to shred things with his buddies tonight. What that means, I don't know.
All right.
21 years old. He wants to get after it on a Friday night.
Good for him. Yeah, we can live vicariously through him, right? Because we're not doing anything. Absolutely
what does a 21-year-old nowadays do? Like, is it the buddies get together? Is it pre-drinks? Is it drinks? Is it now that weed's legal? Is it weed and gummy? Like, what are people doing
I don't think
it
mattered if it was legal like 20 years ago.
Well,
I don't remember being 21 and saying, sorry, guys, it's not legal.
I was one of the guys
that
I told you this story. I had never smoked a drug, did anything until I was 32 years old. I went to Amsterdam where it was legal.
Right.
And then I scared myself and I left early and I never looked back.
You're not alone. I know a lot of stories like that. My sister went over there, hates Amsterdam. My younger sister hates Amsterdam with a passion because she couldn't handle Amsterdam. She got there, she was moving and shaking. What do they call them? Cafes over there.
Yeah, the cafes.
Cafe.
Yeah,
and she was like, I hate it. I had a horrible experience. She was dying to get out of there. I think she pulled the chute and left early, which is, I thought, outrageous because I've been to Amsterdam. I thought it was incredible. I love that city. It's amazing. Yeah. I've told this on the air. I got engaged in Amsterdam. Nobody does that.
No.
People go to Amsterdam once they're divorced, right?
Yeah.
Then they fly to Amsterdam and say, I'll come home in a month. I got engaged in Amsterdam.
That is aggressive. I didn't know that.
On one of the bridges, the Canal of Seven Bridges, I believe it was called. Beautiful spot.
Cool. The locks
Beautiful
are there
spot.
and stuff. Like it's impressive, but that's like a block away from like the red light district.
Oh yeah, it's not far. The next day we're biking around. She's got the engagement ring on. We're going through the red light district. This is a wild experience. We're 24 hours engaged.
Something else. You're walking down the red light district and people are waving at you, and inviting you in. Like all hell breaking loose. Live sex shows there. Like it was something else. Like it was stepping into a different world. Like and I was all over it, but I was not. I didn't enjoy it. Like I left a day early because I scared myself. Well, I scared myself. The first night I was like, I drank a bunch of vodka thinking, okay, I'm going to ease into it. And then, all I did was eat a pancake the size of our hotel. I knew. And then the next day I'm like, I'm going to really try this. And that's where things went sideways. I couldn't feel my face. So that was not good. Yeah, I was
They love Canadians over there, though. Canadians are their favorite people. Love the Canadians because of how we helped out in World War II. A lot of history there, so shout out.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got a big one today. Doogie's been on the case. Jon Cooper coming up in about 20 minutes. The Leafs are in Tampa tomorrow night. We're going to reveal, I don't know how we're going to phrase this, but the 7 Canadian coaches, I think there's a range of emotions of the 7 Canadian coaches. We're about a week and a half into the season now.
Just a simple happiness meter. What's the ranking happiness meter for all 7 of them?
So, if it could be an emoji, maybe it's a thumbs up, a little thing, or maybe the middle finger emoji. There's a couple of those that might be going out right now, too.
I think you're probably right. So we're going to do that in about an hour. Jon Cooper, I don't think Cooper would be ecstatic with his team, but he's got a veteran team. He's got a team that, he always says it, even last year in the playoffs when the Leafs were up, I guess 3-2, is it going into Game 6, where he was like, I'll always go to war with these guys. I'll always bet on our guys, as he should. He's won 2 cups, been to 3 cup finals with them, and that's pro sports. Like, if you've been through the ringer and been successful, you're going to rely on Stamkos and Kucherov and Point and Hedman, et cetera, because they've done it. Many times for you in the past. So I'm sure he's comfortable with where he's at. I think Sheldon Keefe is probably comfortable. I don't think he's ecstatic, but they're 2-2. And I'm sure you were getting similar texts and messages last night. I got a bunch of them from buddies. Is it going to be the same as last year and the year before that? And, they're 2-2. It's 4 games. They're 2-2, but now they've dropped a couple in a row. That felt like a game that was more symbolic, maybe for the fans, maybe was supposed to mean more for the fans, even though it's early in the season because of what happened in the playoffs. Yeah. But they lost again.
They did, and it's not just they lost again. I mean, people in Toronto aren't stupid. They're thinking, without those 2 Austin Matthews hat tricks, maybe it was smoke and mirrors in those 2 games too. Who knows? So maybe it's just off. And if they want to go ahead and be slow starters, that's just what they do. How you have that approach or how that happens organically, I'm not sure. But I said it last night, and you guys have talked about it on this show. It's just the layups are not in that division. They're not Ottawa go win 6-1, Detroit 5-0. Those layups aren't really there anymore. So the longer you delay and wake out of your fog, it's just going to be a little bit more difficult. So don't do it to yourselves. Snap out of it.
And the other thing, too, is the other team is allowed to show up and play hard. Like
No kidding.
You don't just like go, okay, on paper. Like Florida made it to a cup final last year. So those guys, with their home opener, with little juice in the building, yes, they know on the back end they're missing two of their key pieces, but last I checked, Bobrovsky, Verhaeghe, Reinhart, like those guys were still there and played last night, Tkachuk, and they played hard. I just thought the Leafs, in watching their game, there was some laziness to some of the areas, and that ended up costing them. Hey, take a poor route here, get out of the way, make it look good, but I'm not in the lane. That type. I text you guys like David Kampf doing the
There's a flamingo there. Yep.
It just stuff like that where it's like, okay, probably could have got in the lane, probably could have taken a hit to make a play, bear down in certain situation, but you have to give credit to the other teams too. They're allowed to show up and play hard, and they did, and they won.
Yeah, I thought Florida was okay. I didn't think they were
great.
Brilliant. Like this is, I think, what's concerning. Not concerning, but it's deja vu. Is that this has not been a tough schedule. You lose to Chicago on home ice. Like you're supposed to win that game.
Yeah,
Florida,
they got pumped yesterday by Colorado.
And they're at the end of the road. They've been on the road. They are what they are, and they're going to be what they are at the end of the year. That's what Chicago's going to be. And the Leafs, they let that get away from them last night. Yes, there's some juice in the building. Home opener, banner goes up, and all that. But like you said, Noodles, Montour out, Ekblad out, Sam Bennett out.
Gudis is not there anymore.
Exactly. Like that's a game where you should walk in. The Leafs should walk in and think we got to. We're coming off a loss. We're not going to accept that against a team that beat us in the playoffs. Didn't happen. It's very similar to what's happened in the past. And there's been turnover here. That happens as well. You got to give some time to the new guys. And let's face it, the new guys have had their issues. Right. Max Domi is in a really dark place. Really, really dark place. And this was always the concern for everyone once he signed here, was that on one side of it is the excitement because of his name, because of who he is, and it's an incredibly cool story. And he's a veteran player. This is not a rookie. This is not some guy they signed to a PTO who's been playing in Europe for 3 years. So legit, veteran NHLer in his late 20s. But you can tell he is really nervous right now being a Maple Leaf. Like, that's what it looks like to me. He's terrified to make a mistake, and as a result, he's making a lot of mistakes and putting himself and his line mates in a bad spot. Bertuzzi, I don't know what is ailing him right now, but he doesn't have a 5-on-5 point. Klingberg, I thought, was really careless at times, especially in the third last night. Mm-hmm. And they're not alone. Like the carryovers are, they got to take it on the chin at times too.
Dude, it's the whole lot of them. Like
it is
offensively, and people are always asking me, why does the coach change the lines? And it's just like, what the hell else is he supposed to do? Watch that nonsense continue? You have to. You've got to try. And I think Sheldon Keefe even spoke to Mark Masters today and said it's going to take some time here.
Yeah.
And maybe it is. So you got to keep bumbling and fumbling around with the lines until something clicks and you're like Calle Jarnkrok, I feel bad for that guy because he's the fixer always. Well, I'll just give him Jarnkrok because he's a steady Eddie and go up with Matthews and then go down with Tavares and then be on the third line with the kids. He's got to fix everything, it seems. But until they get it right, this is what you're going to see. But you would think, guys, other than the young guys, Nyes, maybe Minton, you should kind of just be ready to go. Why do you want to torture yourself with this start? Well, that's what they do, man.
The thing I've noticed, too, is outside of, really Matthews, and we'll throw in Nylander, and we'll call them the top four. They're not super dangerous 5-on-5. Like that's
they're not creating a lot right now.
No, there's just not. Yeah, like there's just shifts. It's like, okay, 3 minutes have gone, and there's just a bunch of nothing. Like it hasn't been extremely threatening towards the net. Where when they're rolling, it's waves, and okay, looks good, feels good. Like and I want to give everybody a pass early on. We're sometimes 4 and 5 games in right now. Like, let's just breathe a little bit because guys aren't sharp. They're not running their routes. They're thinking
Noodles,
out there.
I do agree with McDavid. He said last night, he goes, let's not panic here. It's 4 or 5 games in. But then he said, at the same time, it's 4 or 5 games.
Well, you got to play better.
It's not opening night. It's not. It's been one game, but
listen,
now it's been 5 games,
but.
And I think, from a fan perspective, looking at the Leafs here, they're 2-2. It's early. Same thing with Edmonton. Edmonton, what are they, 1-3? They're going to figure it out and be okay and make the playoffs. And Toronto's going to be okay here, and they're going to figure it out. But I think, there are certain distractions that can pop up that can kind of tap into the apathy that is applied to some of the fan base here, where you keep talking about, well, I'll see you in April, and then we'll really figure out if you're a different team. And a part of that is what happens in the offseason. And I think the intrigue of signing a guy like Max Domi, a guy like Ryan Reeves, a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi, and then the first couple of games he scored a boatload of goals. Reeves throws some big hits, gets in fights. It's thoroughly entertaining. And all of a sudden, as a fan base, I think you're in the moment. And you're like, okay, this is something different. We're not focused on contracts and playoff results. Right. But at some point, you got to continue to prove, I think, to the fans who have had a difficult ride in terms of truly believing, things are going to be different based on, how you're going to play. And one of those examples can be, don't have a slow start like you do every other year. So don't allow the fans to say, oh, it's going to be the same thing because they did this last year and they did it the year before and they lost to Chicago. Like last year they lost to Arizona, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then there are examples where you can prove that you got a little bit of a DNA that's a little bit different. And I think, people are focusing on that Kulikov hit on Nylander last night, which the ref didn't seem to think was overly violent. Willie got up, continued with his game, and at least never responded to. But I think that was a missed opportunity for someone to say, you know what, we're going to treat this a little bit differently too. Right. And what I would like to see there, ideally, is actually Nylander get up and hack him. Or Matthews go in and give him a shot, or Tavares go in and give him a shot. John Tavares is right there. He saw it. He chased the puck instead of going over and saying, you know what, I'm going to have a word with you. And that is something that could be different. That seems like a layup for them to be like, we just have a little bit of a different approach.
Right.
Like Reeves is here, Domi, Bertuzzi, et cetera. But the main guys, we're going to get pissed off when some stuff happens. We're going to be owly.
Yeah, especially
that wasn't
a
really dirty. Let me just tell you
It wasn't overly
It wasn't
dirty.
a bad hit at all.
I used to be an expert at that. Like if I felt a little something like that close to the boards, I'm going in. My glove's going to come off. My neck will be stiff on the ice, and I will look over and see the ref's hand upwards. Because if you take the glove off, it always looks worse. I don't know, the bare hand, and it's like you can kink your neck, and it's like you can sell that one. And that's what he was trying to do. That's why he got up, and you see out of the corner of his eye, he's horse-eyeing the ref. He's like, did that guy call that or not? But you're right. Different response. Do something different.
That's all it is. It's not about we're going to have a line brawl now because it wasn't crazy.
Dude.
It wasn't overly. It wasn't. Remember the Riley Point situation where that was a fluke play. They were battling and Point went down. It looked brutal, and that's the playoffs. And as we said earlier this week, you cannot replicate the playoffs in Game 4 of the regular season. Of course not. But it's just an easy. It was almost like a layup early in the season for them to say, you know what, we're not just going to plug along and be the same DNA, that we've always been. Like we're going to win this game and we're going to fight back. And if you hit one of our guys, we're going to have a response. We're going to go and let you know we didn't like it. And even if it's a two-hander across the back of the legs, Game 4, and you take a 2-minute penalty, for me that's worth something. It just is a little bit of a different approach, and it obviously didn't happen last night.
I agree. Like especially
just a minor approach that's different.
With all of the talk about, players adding team toughness to the group, feeling a little bit bigger, feeling a little bit, that would have been, okay, I feel a little bit tougher because I do have a sheriff out there. I do have a sheriff on the bench. Like, I am going to, take a little bite back. I didn't think it was the most egregious hit. It looked bad, and you certainly didn't want Willie to lay there and hopefully he was fine. It seemed like his neck was kinked a little bit. Oh, you just talked about how, some of the things guys do out there. But I would like to see some more bites sometimes. You don't have to have it. You're not going to have it 82 games and then lead into the playoffs. But if the reason for the signing was to have, and I'm going to quote Tree on this, to have some snot in your lineup, the snot just doesn't come from the guys who provide it. It comes from everybody, right?
What about snot?
Exactly
just forget about the snot with fights and punches and all this. What about just snot ready to play? Like, wouldn't you think there would have been a gathering saying, guys, let's not torture ourselves again this year. what are we going to do? Drop 5 of the first 8 like we did and have people in Anaheim asking Sheldon Keefe if he's scared about his job again? Let's just come out ready to rock. And I'll tell you what, though, Edmonton tried to do that, and guess where it put them? Their coach has got Scrabble face right now.
Yeah.
So you can talk the talk. It's just one thing to just go out there and do it.
Right.
So you can talk about physicality. I like the idea of just getting it done. Being ready to play, playing physical, playing hard, and getting it done.
Yeah. Well, it's a recipe, and they know how to play. They just haven't been able to execute it. Like the first 2 games, you're right. It's point night. Matthews looking great, and Willie looking amazing. And then everyone kind of fell in behind that. But they've given up too many goals. They haven't scored any goals in the last couple games. And the only dangerous time that I've seen in the last 2 games has been their power play. Outside of that, 5-on-5, nothing dangerous outside of 34. 34 has been dangerous 5-on-5. Everyone else, and Willie, a little bit here and there. But I think the last 2 games, 5-on-5, they haven't done what we've expected them to do.
Right, and things are going to, they're going to be adjusted, and, Keefe is moving things around. It looks like Fraser Minten might be coming out of the lineup. They're going to send him back. I mean, he'll probably go back after this weekend, maybe after the road trip. Maybe they keep him for the road trip and then send him back, but it's probably time. They've called Pontus Holmberg up. Holmberg likely ends up playing tomorrow. But, tomorrow's going to be a big game. It's a fun game. It's, Tampa, again, is not ecstatic about their start. They haven't had a great start statistically themselves. At least they're 2-2. A lot of history between these 2 teams. And I'm looking forward to the game tomorrow, and I'm sure Jon Cooper is as well. And, of course, he's the head coach of the Lightning, and he'll join us in about 10 minutes. So we'll catch up with Jon Cooper. We've got Luke Wilson coming up later this afternoon. Hayes and Company got sewered by Derek Carr last night, as I knew I would. I knew I would get sewered by Derek Carr.
No, but you were so stupid with that pick. And I'll tell you what, I came home, I lied in bed, and it was, I don't know, I think they were up by 12, or I don't know what it was, but I'm like, this is in the bag. I switched back before I closed my eyes, and it was a tie ball game.
Right.
And I said, and just after we chirped you a little bit, like a good night chirp, and I was like, oh my God, if they win this game, he's coming off the top turnbuckle and he'll never die. And it might have been the turning point of the whole season.
It very well could be, because I was thinking the same thing. I had something in the chamber to send to you two that would have been absolutely obnoxious.
It would have been the worst ever. And then Mr. Moreau.
Yeah, Mr. Moreau couldn't
he
catch it.
He had butter fingers.
But that was overthrown, too. Like, I don't know if he stopped. Like, I'd have to go back and look at it.
Don't ever say that that's overthrown.
It was a high
just
throw.
Slightly, though. Slightly like
overthrown. Tom Brady's not happy with that throw. I'm sorry. Tom Brady is not ecstatic with that throw.
That's
he threw it at
corner
the cone.
of the – that's called an end route.
Yes.
Okay?
Is it?
Like, that's where you throw that, and you have to
He's got to catch that.
He's got to catch.
Has to catch that.
In hockey, they say you can never give a good player a bad pass.
Yep.
That's a
backdoor missile, but he's got to get it home.
He's got to have that, especially at that time. And if he felt like that was a bad throw, his reaction, he wouldn't have been sitting there at the end of the game hunched over on the bench.
Still got to catch that ball.
Kamara said after the game, he's like, come on, he's got to catch that. This is
of
pro.
course he's got to catch it.
No, he goes, this is pro.
95% on him, but 5% a little bit overthrown.
Oh, see, you're just mad at Carr because Carr didn't get it done.
You know why I'm mad? Because I hated the play call on fourth down. To throw a fade on fourth down when it wasn't even close, it's so deflating. Like a stupid fade that had no chance. I hate that play call.
You know what drove me nuts? How Jacksonville just played prevent defense and said, go ahead, march down the field. I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing?
Well, that's another thing. Like, New Orleans ties it up. It's 24-24. Their bread and butter is defense. And then they have a massive breakdown. And Christian Kirk takes one to the house, and Al Michaels thought he stepped out on the one, which was bizarre. One of the most bizarre calls ever. I was like, Al, he is blatantly home free, dude.
I didn't have the volume.
It was really a strange call. It was like, I don't know who was tapping him on the shoulder.
Choking on some steak or something.
We'll get it.
He was choking on some steak or something like that.
Because I had no volume. I saw it. I'm like, what a touchdown. That's not even a question.
It was a brilliant play. It was a brilliant play, and that was Trevor Lawrence in a nutshell, and Kirk ran a great route, and it was bad defensive breakdown, and he was completely home free, and it was like, I'd love to see the face of Herbert looking at him, being like, dude, Al, mix in a vegetable. That is blatantly a touchdown. Like, I don't know what we're doing here, man. Because it was a good 15 seconds of him being like, hey, he's out at the one. He's he's out. No, he's not. Touchdown.
Noodles,
Like,
what's the protocol if you said in the middle of a game, like if Gord said something and you said, Gord, give your head a shake. That did not happen. Is that like bad bedside manner?
Well,
not that Gord would ever do
Gord
that.
wouldn't make that type of mistake.
He wouldn't. And if sometimes you misspeak, all you do is
Al
clarify.
Michaels is an all-time great. I love Al Michaels.
All you do is clarify. Like I called a penalty the other day where it was the wrong person or whatever. You just say, you know what, my bad. I thought it was this. You you move on. It was Nick Paul that shot the puck instead of name me somebody. So that's all you do. You clarify because you make mistakes. It's live, but. If he doubled down on it and stuck with it for 15 seconds, that's a little different.
We'll play it later in the hour. You guys tell me if I'm overreacting. I have not heard it since I heard it live, but I was watching it live. I was like, what is Al Michaels talking about, man? He is absolutely in the end zone.
This really frazzled you, huh?
Just because I was kind of hoping he was out at the one. It was a part of me that's like, tell me this will be a goal line stop or somehow they'll hold them to a field goal. So I'm already rattled because Kirk has a touchdown, and I can see this game going up in smoke. And Al Michaels was kind of messing with my emotions a little bit last night. So breakdown of that later this hour. We've got our happy rankings for all the 7 Canadian coaches. We'll get to that into the 5 p.m. hour. Mike Johnson coming up. Dear Hayesy-B in a couple of hours. But the Leafs are in Tampa tomorrow night. We have not seen them play the Lightning since Game 6 down in Tampa. We know what happened there. John Tavares with the OT winner. The head coach of the Lightning, Jon Cooper. He will join us next. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We'll have our best bets later this afternoon. Luke Wilson still to come. Dear Hayesy-B in a couple of hours. The Leafs were back on the ice this morning down in Tampa. They're back in action tomorrow night against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and this is certainly a game that the Leafs circle and Leaf fans circle. I'm sure they're not alone when it comes to playing Tampa. With all the success the Lightning have had over the last 3 or 4 years, I'm sure they've got 4 or 5 teams that are big rivals, right, and are always looking to take a chunk out of them, if not more than that. But that's what comes with success, and it should be a really fun one tomorrow night. Let's head down to Tampa. Here's the head coach of the Lightning back on OverDrive. Here's Jon Cooper. How you doing, John?
What's going on, boys?
How we doing early in the season? How we feeling?
I know. It's my becoming a yearly event. You're coming on the show.
Yes, it is, and we appreciate it.
Although O-Dog didn't badger me on text this time. He just is like, Cooper, come on now. This is his yearly thing.
I think you're basically telling us don't even ever think about asking a second time, if I get the drift appropriately.
No, it's all good. No, all good. Actually looking forward to tomorrow. So we got Canucks came in last night, so we get a good taste of the media coming in, and it was a lot of fun to see all those guys. And Toronto tomorrow, so it's always enjoy seeing everybody from the north come down, and because you don't get to see them too often. So it's a good week.
When you see Talk rip into his team in Philly, does it kind of just make everybody aware these guys are coming in here and they're quite possibly going to be ready to play after he calls them soft in Philly? Is kind of everybody aware of that, or are you guys just you've been around the block and you know it?
Well, I don't know if you saw the 3 previous games we played.
I did.
So Talk and I came in. We were on probably even terms.
Okay, got it.
Well, how do you approach
I saw Talk the night before the game, though, so he's one of my favorites in the league. There's limited better guys than that guy. I mean, he's so awesome to be around. And one thing is, he's a passionate guy. He coaches like he plays, and he gets the most out of his guys. It's, they work their tails off, and I thought we were fortunate to hang on last night because they were coming hard.
Well, Rick Tocchet is one of the 7 Canadian coaches that was outspoken the other day. Rick Bowness was outspoken in Winnipeg last night. Jay Woodcroft, very outspoken in Edmonton. And you referenced that Canadian media that's coming down. There's a lot of it here. And I'm curious your approach to messaging through the media, like how often you have some sort of premeditated message that you're going to say to your media that you know is going to get to your players. Is that ever a part of your approach early in the year?
Honestly, it's never been really in my bag of tricks, if I have any at all. I don't really use the media. I don't think about it. I basically try and tell it how it is. But I'm not, I don't know. For me to talk about our team publicly, I think that's a big dressing room thing. For us, it's just the way I've done it. And so it's really not for me. Now, will I come out and say, hey, I thought we played brutal tonight or something like that? For sure. But it's not really, don't kind of want to bring if there's dirty laundry going on in the air or how we're doing. I don't want to bring it in the public. In saying that, playoffs might be a little bit different because you're playing against a team in a series. It's a 7-game series. And there's been times in my career where if I needed to get something through, I'd kind of selectively do it through the media. And so
we know.
I'm going to be completely honest. That's definitely happened at playoff time, but not really regular season.
Coop, I was at the game the other night. You did your 800th game in the league, and a lot of them probably just melt together, but are there a few in regular season, obviously winning the cups, all of that, but is there any that stand out for you, through this journey so far, especially in the regular season?
Oh, so that's a tough question. I got asked that the other night. It was kind of took me off guard. When you've been around a bit, it was the first thing that came to my head was like the tribute videos, and I don't know why. I think maybe because of some of the success we've had and some players that, have been part of the winning, in the past, how many years, and they come back and you know how much they meant to the organization. And it's like heart-wrenching to watch like these tribute videos. So I can remember specifically, I remember those games where those happened. But naturally the biggest one for me is my first game in the NHL. And it was just I always talk about players when they play their first game, and people ask me, well, how's this player going to be? I'm like, don't even worry about it. He's not going to remember it anyway, because you're just taking the whole thing in. And it was very similar to that with my first game, but it was against New Jersey. It was against Marty Brodeur, and we were basically losing, I think, 4-3, like, late. And Alex Killorn scored with, 20 seconds left. The goalie pulled, and then it went to a shootout, and Marty St. Louis got the winner in the shootout, and so that one always sticks in my head. When we won Game 62 in 2019, that was a big one. And then if I'm thinking, I'm just trying off the top of my head, there was a big one before our first cup year, and we played a game in Boston, and we kind of Boston had our way with us quite a bit in the regular season, and they were kind of bullying us. And I remember Tony Cirelli. Stuff was going on in the game, was getting super physical, and Pat Maroon was making it a habit of fighting Zdeno Chara. But Tony Cirelli kind of instigated this whole thing, starting with Chara, and then a multitude of fights broke out, and it was we ended up losing that game 2-1, but it was maybe a turning point for us. We kind of took off from there, because then we just kind of had that we didn't care attitude, and we were going to try and bully everybody and play high-level hockey while doing it. And I remember that game sticking out for me was a catalyst of us winning 2 cups and going to the final a third time. And that was right at the end of I think it was right before COVID started. That was big for us.
Did you ever ask Patrick Maroon why he wanted to fight Zdeno Chara, of all people?
I know, isn't it crazy? I think he's second all time. He might be first. I thought I saw something. I can't remember who it is, but I think Patty's one behind for the amount of times he fought Chara. It's insane.
That's crazy.
I remember we were in Vegas for, the awards many years ago. I think in 2014 or something. And Chara I remember we were all staying at the Wynn, I think, and he was in the pool with his kids. And he was tossing his kids around, in the pool. It was, having fun with them, and it was like
13 feet high.
Yeah, he was juggling a golf ball. And the kids were 10, but it was, he's a physical specimen. I don't know how guys look him in the eye and say, okay, yeah, you want to go.
Coop, how did your approach change? You've talked about the connection between a good coach and good goaltender quite often. Like, how pissed are you when somebody comes to you and says, Vasilevsky's done for 2 months, and just the approach to everything?
Yeah, that was a bit of a shocker. I'm not going to lie, because, we lost the Leafs last year, and it sucked losing. Like, it was, we'd been to 3 straight finals, and it was just to be like, wow, I can't believe it ended this fast. And then honestly, after like 4 days, it was, wow, this might be good for us. And it might be really good for the goalie, because the goalie played, like 73 playoff games in that 3 years. No, was it 73? No, 40. It was damn near 73 games if you count like the bubble, those games before the bubble, something crazy like that. Anyway, that's more than a full season in a 3-year span. And I think everybody was wearing down both physically and mentally. And so I was, like, these guys need a rest. And so it was great. And then guys came back and probably a month earlier than normally. And everybody looked phenomenal, including Vass. And then for this to flare up on him like it did in training camp, it was just, he'd gone through all these tests and stuff like that. Everything was great. And then, he started feeling the pain, and, the rest is history. And so it's unfortunate, the timing, but in the end, it's going to be great for him. And injuries happen. It's whether it's, your fourth liner or your all-star goalie, that's where depth comes in, and you have to be in a situation where you have to expect the unexpected. And it's tough for him, because I know he wants to play, but I know when he gets back in, I don't know, a month or whenever it is left, he's going to be in a really good spot, and hopefully we're in a decent spot where he can take us home after that.
With Jon Cooper, head coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning, Leafs in Tampa tomorrow night. We were talking, earlier in the week about different rivals the Leafs have, historical rivals like Montreal, geographical rivals like Buffalo and Ottawa, and then recent, playoff rivals like obviously Tampa, Boston, etc. And I'm curious how you think the rest of the league looks at your team, considering all the success you've had, over the last 3 or 4 years, with 62 wins, 3 straight Cup finals, 2 cups. I'm sure Florida, the Panthers are a massive rival for you, but do you feel like you guys have a target on your back, basically with everyone, because of your recent history and how much winning you guys have accomplished?
Hard to say. Like, I don't want to think for other teams, but I just know if the roles were reversed and I was looking at a team that had the success we've had, I'd probably be sitting here having that day circled. Mm-hmm. It's always kind of a measuring stick. And I know when we were coming up, and we'd look at teams like Chicago and LA and just, Boston, and look at those teams and say, okay, how are we against the best? And we would measure ourselves and say, okay, hey, we're not even close, or hey, we're getting better. And, you kind of watch that progression, but those are the teams you did that against. And so, I would think maybe, I don't want to, again, speak for other teams, but, you want to look at the best teams in the league and say, like I said, measure yourself. And so, for us, it's different now, but I still, consider, until we get knocked off, I still consider us one of the, top dogs. And it's always been that kind of Boston, Toronto, Tampa. Florida's kind of squeezed its way in there now as those teams, but, we just went on that road trip against Ottawa, Detroit, and Buffalo. And so I saw firsthand what we're up against. And this division is as clouded as I've ever seen it. And so I guarantee you those teams had this game on, circled for them, saying, hey, this is one of the teams we got to jump. This is one of the teams that's been, marquee, like as well as the Leafs and Boston for the last decade. Where are we? And so I bet you, after playing us, they were feeling, pretty good about themselves. And so for us, we got to dig in and because knowing that there's no easy nights for us. And especially with, having our goalie out and especially the early injuries with Stammer and Tyler Mott out of the gate, we don't have a room for error. And so I think our guys recognize that, and we just got to plug away.
So, Coop, when you just to circle back on the measuring stick games, I know you're doing that as coaching staff, but how do you kind of have a pulse on whether your players are doing that? Would you talk to them or just assume that they thought the same way?
We talk about it. I think there's teams that you don't really need to talk about. And I would say Florida, Toronto, Boston for sure are three teams that when those guys are coming, we know we're probably somewhere in the standings, like super close to them, except for last year with Boston. But it was, we know that somebody's jumping over somebody or what have you. And so the players know. When marquee players come to town, and no need to name them, but you know who they are, guys have those circled. They want to, and individually, the Stars want to measure themselves versus the Stars. There's no doubt about that. I know, there's so many outstanding Russian goalies in the league. The goalies measure each other against them. So it becomes, there's also those little intricacies of the individuals too. And I think it's super cool. Like it really Stars pull the best out of Stars. That's where it's really fun to watch. And the best teams pull the best out of other teams. And so that's what makes it great. And there's no doubt that in certain situations, not only as coaches, but the players recognize who's coming in.
Yep, and it's going to be a fun one tomorrow night. Leafs Lightning down in Tampa. He is the head coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning, Jon Cooper. We always love having you on, John. We really appreciate you doing this.
My pleasure, boys, and I guess we'll see you down the road.
Yes, absolutely. Jon Cooper joining us annually. Early in the season, he pops on, and we love having him on. He's a great great interview, obviously a great coach, great run. 800 games, that's a good run, man, and he's probably going to be coaching for a long – I'll bet you he hits 2,000 games if he wants to, right? Like he'll probably coach another 15, 20 years if he wants to.
15, 20 years? How old is the guy?
I don't know. Is he 50?
Dude, he's older than 50.
No, I don't think so.
I'm 47.
He's 56. Doogie, wow.
Yeah.
Doogie off the top turnbuckle.
Doogie off the top turnbuckle.
See, that's what I mean. It's like he ain't going to be 77
All right, another
behind
10 years. Who's the oldest coach in the league right now?
I don't think there's an old goat out there. Like, I don't think there's a 70-year-old coach in the National Hockey League.
Torts, Lindy
Ruff.
No.
The oldest is Lindy Ruff and Bonus. Rick Bonus.
Rick Bonus.
I think they're barely 70.
Well, they're close. They're in the late 60s.
All right, another 10 years.
Yeah, we'll give him 10.
We'll give him 10. Lindy just locked in an extension. Lindy Ruff's not going anywhere.
Hey,
right?
Keep cooking, man. You can do it. Do it.
Rick Bonus is 68. So Coop's 56. So you're looking at
12
another
more
12
years.
years. Probably 12 to 15 if he wants. But let's say 10 hard for sure.
10, there you go. There's another 800 games, probably.
Yeah,
for
sure.
All right.
There you go.
Listen, it's been a good run, but as you said, Stars bring out the best in Stars, and that's would be the expectation tomorrow night. With the Leafs, it's a lot of discussion about the depth having to supply, but if that's not going to happen, that's why the big boys are there and why they get paid what they get paid. If the third line's not supplying it, if the fourth line's getting caved in, whatever. Well, when the first and second line get out there, they're going to play, and they're playing a ton of minutes. Mm-hmm. Like Matthews and Marner are playing a ton of minutes early in the year. That is not ideal. And yet, Keith's looking at his bench. Nick Nurse looked at his bench and is like, what do you want me to do? I'm not putting those guys on the ice right now. They're not playing well enough. They're not bringing enough to the table. But as Cooper said, like prior to last night, like he hasn't been ecstatic with the way Tampa's played early. So they'll be owly tomorrow. I would expect the Leafs will be. I think it'll be a fun game.
Yeah.
So more on that throughout the afternoon. Mike Johnson still to come. Luke Wilson still to come. Dear Hayesy-B coming up as well at 6:30. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Mike Johnson coming up in the next hour. Dear Hayesy-B later this afternoon. We've got baseball games tonight. My Diamondbacks surviving. That was a big win last night.
Ooh.
Big win to keep it a series. And Houston gets past Texas again, and the Rangers are in full panic mode. You talk about the underpants cam. Head to Texas right now, and you will see a destructive scene.
Well, wait till you see the skip in Arizona's underpants when Bryce Harper goes yard in the first tonight.
Yeah, I could see Philly responding. I expect Philly to respond.
Philly will dummy them to take it home, and I love it. And it'll be 5.
Yep, at 5 or less. It's certainly a distinct possibility at this point. We've got a couple of ball games. We got the NFL this weekend. We got the Raptors in action tonight on TSN Radio. They're at home against Washington. They're quickly wrapping up the preseason, the real stuff getting started real soon. Big news today as well. Christine Sinclair announcing she will be retiring from the national team at the end of this year, which I think is the ultimate sign of like respect and like GOAT status, that you decide when you're not playing, right? Like usually players, it's like you can't play with us anymore, or
they hang on too long, right?
Yeah, or it's just you made that one team and you're never going to make it again. But with Christine, it's like, I'll let you know. Okay, that's enough. I'm not playing anymore. And she's been a part of that national team for 24 years.
Yeah,
one of the great Canadian athletes of all time, and congrats on what's been an incredible run. So more on that a little bit later this afternoon. We have the Al Michaels clip from last night, the winning touchdown.
ahead.
We will play that in the next hour. We will play it. You guys, I haven't heard it since last night. You tell me if I was overreacting.
I'm glad, because I watched it with no volume, so I'd love to hear what this cat had to say.
A lot of this gambling related, admittedly, because I was on the Saints, so maybe a little bit over the top with my own reaction. So more on that still to come. Mike Johnson, the Al Michaels situation, the happy rankings for all 7 Canadian teams still to come. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.